Welcome to episode 5 of The View with Vertex. I'm your host, Isaac Morrison, and today we've got a very special guest. She is the UK's first female advanced scaffolder. She's also the UK's first female offshore scaffolder. Today, she's going to be sitting down and speaking to us about a life story, how she got into the trade and what she plans to do in the future. So, without further ado, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you. You made us sound really good there.
I'm working on my intros. I don't know if I'm going to do the intros on every single episode.
Oh, I think it's good. Gives us a little confidence boost anyway.
Yeah. Well, one of the guys we had on a couple of weeks ago, a guy called James, he's building a homeless shelter for the city of Salford. And I gave him a bit of a boost. He was like, oh yeah, cheers for that. So yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, I think you should.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
You've
my pleasure.
Not been back in the country long, have you? You've been in...
I've just been to Ibiza for a week. Not for a party, not for a sesh. I went to a nice little yoga retreat, just took a little time out.
Which all of this is stuff that we definitely need to get to.
Yeah.
Because you're sort of launching something pretty new, aren't you? It's the Healgood Factor.
Yeah. So this is my kind of side business, a holistic business. I'm wanting to hold retreats, preferably around the world. This is like well-being, mental health retreats, to help people just get a bit, people with anxiety, get a bit better control of the minds and stuff like that. So
yeah. So I guess that's a perfect introduction to maybe getting a bit of background on yourself and sort of experiences both in and outside of scaffolding. Back to the beginning, really. So, where's home?
Well, home is a little town called Meadowall. So, if you know the Northeast, it's pretty well known as being one of the roughest towns going.
Scaffolder from a rough area.
Yeah. They had riots back in 1991. So there was 2 lads got killed when they were getting chased by the police, and everyone just went absolutely mad, smashing shops up and burning places down and stuff. So there's documentaries on that as well. But
you'll have to send us a link to
this. I will do. It's not so bad now, but it is a pretty rough area. So yeah, I didn't really have a good smooth start in life.
A lot of scaffolders don't. That speaks for most people in the trade. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because there's no real barrier to entry, is there? It's just like, and I think a lot of us, it's just like, I've said this on every single one, I think, so far, but you kind of, you're either born into it or roped into it in a way. It does draw from people from similar environments to our own. So,
so growing up, I lived with my nana because me mum and dad, they split up when she was still pregnant. So I never really met my dad until I was a teenager, which is a whole other story.
Any brothers or sisters? Or
just me, but half brothers and sisters through my dad,
right?
Which I did meet later in life as well. But my mum, unfortunately, she had bad mental health problems, and in her 20s she became an alcoholic and drug addict. She started, mainly on sort of amphetamines and cannabis and stuff like that, prescription drugs. And then she moved on to heroin by the age of 10, say. I was the age of 10.
Oh, Jesus. Well,
by the time I was 10, she was heavy on the heroin and stuff like that. But my mum always did play a role in my life. She kind of came and went, And
was you with your mum at this point where?
No, I was with me nana. She handed us over to me grandma.
Yeah.
Because she knew she couldn't take care of us. But she did sort of come in and out of my life, and I was exposed to a lot of stuff though. She used to take us to people's houses, where they were taking drugs and things like that. So
yeah.
And she used to take us shoplifting with her as well. So she used to go into shops and steal and things like that. And that's something that I ended up doing when I got a little bit older as well. So to be fair, considering what was going on in my life with my mum and stuff, and I did used to suffer really bad nausea when I was a child as well. And I was actually clinically diagnosed as depressed when I was a child, but when I was about 8 years old, because my mum was suicidal as well. So she did try to take her own life a few times when I was young. She took an overdose the first time, and she done her wrists the second time, and she stabbed herself the third time, things like that. So it was pretty rough. The relationship with my mum has been a big issue in my life. which I'm on a good sort of healing journey with it now. My mum's still alive as well. We've got a good relationship now. She hasn't touched drugs for 10 years, but she came out the other end of it. Not many people did with what she went through. But considering all of that, I was a pretty kind of happy child in school. I loved going to school. I was really clever. I was really intelligent. I was actually getting put in classes the year above me through school. And even in high school, I was in like all of the top sets and things like that. And I was just like quite a geeky child, I was myself. I was quite loud, outspoken. And if I wanted to do something, I would do it. I wasn't bothered like about fitting in and stuff like that.
So did you have a big friendship group in school?
Yeah. Well, things changed. So as soon as I hit 13, there's like a turning point. I was diagnosed with scoliosis. So scoliosis is curvature of the spine. And some people are born with it, but very rarely. But this was an adolescent one. So when you're growing up and you're going through adolescence, all these hormones are going through your body. One hormone just goes off wrong. And it basically started growing my spine curved. And it was me nana noticed it. She noticed that I was like walking with my head on the side and my rib was sticking out a bit in my back. So she took us to the doctors and the doctor examined us and she was just like, oh yeah, it's just growth spurts. You've got one side of your rib growing faster than the other. You'll be fine. So she sent us away. But then a few months later, it was getting worse, so my nana took us back. And as soon as I walked in, the guy was like, I know exactly what you're here for. But he said, look, you'll have to go and get x-rays and you could wait like up to a year or 2 years for an operation. Because there's only one hospital that really deals with it. So they're quite chock-a-block.
Right. And where's that hospital?
The Freeman Hospital in Gosforth.
Is that North East?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the surgery itself had only been going for 10 years. But anyway, so the guy, he basically said, look, you could wait a while. You need to go and get all these tests done. But when I went and got my x-rays, a week later, I got x-rayed again to measure like the degree of the severity of how fast it's grown. And they rang up like that week. They were like, you need to come in. It's grown really, really fast. And if they hadn't have stopped it growing, like if they hadn't have stopped it, my heart was like, my spine was twisting that much that it could have crushed my heart and my lungs if it had been left. So if I had been born like 100 years ago with that condition, I wouldn't have survived it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that surgery really did save my life. Yeah. And
so that's all why you're kind of still in school and still going through normal adolescent.
Yeah, it was just the time when I had just chose my options to go into year 10 and I was dead into performing arts, drama, dancing. I loved dancing. I was done gymnastics throughout primary school. So
did you nana? Did you say nana or grandma?
Nana, yeah.
I
call her me nana. I'll switch between because I know like.
Well, it's nana for me. On both sides, mum and dad, it's nana. So
nana, yeah.
So nana played a big part in like taking you to these.
Yeah. She took us to hospital and stuff. Yeah.
And to the sports, gymnastics and that. Kind of thing.
Yeah. She was brilliant. To be fair, there was me and my auntie. So she had another child quite late. She was in her 40s when she had Rachel. So my auntie Rachel was a bit more like a sister. She was a couple of years older, just 3 years older. So we got. When I went to live with my nana when I was 5, she became like my sister.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, and she done a brilliant job with both of us. She actually quit her job to bring me up. And we did scrimp and scrape, like we didn't really have a penny. But she done the best that she could, really. She fed and clothed us, so she done really well. And she would take us to these sort of things.
So the back operation,
yeah.
How did that impact on your kind of schooling, social life? You said things kind of took a change from that point. Yeah,
it was strange. So like, I was obviously I couldn't go back to school for a few weeks. The operation was massive. It was like 7.5 hour operation. I was in hospital 10 days, and then there was a long recovery period after that. So I wasn't allowed to do my dancing. I used to just have to sit there and watch them dance, and that was pretty like crippling. And I could feel like something inside of us just like feeling really victim, like, oh, I can't do anything that I want to do anymore and stuff. And something was like building up. And then a couple of my friends and that had sort of two lots of friends. One of them were quite like geeky, like nerdy. And then my other friends, they were a little bit more chivalry. And we were 13 at the time, and we couldn't ring out off our house phone. You could just ring in because my nana didn't have any money for the landline. So I used to have to walk down to the phone box. And because I was like resting at home a lot as well, my friends stopped coming to see us. And like, you know, they'd say, oh, we'll be round on Monday, and then they wouldn't turn up and stuff, and they were just going out living their life.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of stuck in the house thinking, you know, I can't do anything. I can't dance. I can't see my friends and stuff.
And something made me feel a bit forgotten about. So
yeah. It was a horrible time because I was really suffering, you know, like I just thrived off my friendships and stuff. So I remember walking down to the phone box one day, and I shouldn't have even been out. And I rang my friends, and they were like, oh, sorry, we forgot to come and that. And they went, look, we're just in the park, like in Percy Main. So I was like, oh, do you know what? I'm going. And I shouldn't have been out, but I jumped on the metro and I went and met them at the park. And that was when I had my first bottle of cider. And I had only been out of hospital about 5-6 weeks.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us sort of discover around that age. I mean, I can only speak for my own story, but, you know, I remember being as young as like, I remember sneaking downstairs. My dad, well, he became an alcoholic in the end, but, I remember him, you know, he was a drinker. He was always a drinker even when we was kids. I remember me and my brother used to sneak downstairs in the house, and we used to like sneak a bit of his can. I mean, I'm talking like probably my daughter's age, now like 5. Yeah. Youngest daughter's 5. So probably around that age, and just sneaking downstairs and a little bit of a drink. And I remember once he had cider, and usually it was a lager drinker, or he'd sometimes drink like Guinness or like stout sort of stuff. We had this cider, and I had a sip of it. I thought, because obviously the first time you drink beer, it tastes like shit. You know? You're like, oh.
Same as when you have a tab, isn't it?
First thing, I'm doing this for. So I had this drink of it, and I was like, oh, I like it. You know, I thought, it's happened now. I like it. I'm talking like 5 years old or something like that. And like right the way through being a kid. I mean, things have obviously changed a lot. I remember going to like barbecues with my mates, mum and dad and stuff like that, and just probably nicking beer and taking it down the canal. And
I know it's mad to think when you look at a 13-year-old now and you think, God, what was I doing at that age?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But it is common. You know, most of the people you speak to start drinking at around that age. I mean, I went to the extremes, you know, like. Yeah,
I was just about to say, it's like a rite of passage, isn't it? Like you do in your adolescence drink, but then, you know, you do see people, and because they still developing as you know, physically they still develop as a human being and mentally and all the rest of it, and because they're having such a big change, you know, a big experience within
everything's changing in your body as well as your mind, isn't it? It's you're growing up,
and then to throw alcohol into it, like you say, it does get a grip of some people. And I know friends now, you know, that I'd say they have got serious drinking problems.
I mean, if you look at the mental health problem in the world at the moment, it's no wonder if people are drinking and taking drugs at 13, 14.
Yeah.
You know, hammering it every weekend. You're not gonna be right in 10 years down the line, like 20 years down the line. I think this is part of the problem with mental health issues in the world now.
Yeah.
Especially the younger generation, because they're having harder drugs now, younger.
And it's these where's the line now? Because there's all these legal highs.
Yeah.
And you know, stuff that's, you know, the laughing gas as well is like, where's this come about?
I know. That wasn't around when we were young, thank God.
I know. Or maybe not. Maybe it would have been better if it was a laughing gas, but yeah.
Yeah.
So around 13, you had your first taste of cider. And
And so that was basically when I started going out and drinking and smoking and stuff like that. And to be fair, it was only because I didn't want to be alone. I only done it because my friends were doing it. It was totally against who I was. I was like a little nerd, really. Do you know what I mean? But because all my pals were doing it, I just joined in. So when I go back to that time, it wasn't me, but then it became part of who I was. And I was drinking for the connection with people. Do you know what I mean? And that's a theme that I've seen throughout my life. And at the minute, I'm trying not to drink at all. Because for the reasons for drinking, do you know what I mean? I think every time I've drank and stuff, it's been for connection. I think society, that's why people drink, is to connect with people. And there's so many other ways to do it without having to lose who you are. You drink and you become a different person, don't you? So it's not a true connection with people.
Yeah.
But like, anyway, so by Christmas that year, when I was still 13, I was in hospital for drinking a bottle of vodka. I had to get my stomach pumped. It was just mad. I ended up joining, you know, with the sort of gangs. We were like gangs, really. The lads would always like, you know, jump on people. There was a lot of physical violence going on. So that time in my life, I was introduced to all of that, like violence, drink, drugs. And yeah, by the time I was like 15, I went right downhill, you know. I'm surprised I even like scraped my GCSEs, to be honest, because I just stopped going to school in the end. I just totally rebelled. You know, I feel awful at my nana now when I look back what I put my nana through. Because there was times like I was getting that drunk, and I think this was down to like the trauma, you know, the childhood trauma that I'd been through.
Yeah.
I would drink, I would always go that little bit further than everyone else. I was the one who would be like legless drunk. And I remember once my mates took us home and they rang the doorbell and they just dumped us on the ground, and my nana opened the door and I'd be like lying on the floor, being sick on myself and stuff.
I guess as a girl as well, you're physically smaller.
Yeah.
And like you're out with the lads drinking and stuff like that. I was built like that. Do you know what I mean? I was really small and thin and everything when I was a kid. And like you do try and keep up with everybody.
Yeah.
And I've been in the same situation many times. I remember, I think I drank 2 litres of cider in a ginnel. I don't know what you call a ginnel where you're from, but like an alleyway.
No idea.
It's a ginnel in Manchester. Call it what you want wherever you're from, by the way. Yeah, so, you know, you do the stupid shit. You're nailing a bottle of cider, spinning around and all the rest of it. So we decided it would be a good idea to drink 2 litres of like White Ace. Don't know whether White Ace is a thing anymore, but anyway.
White Lightning, I think.
Or White Lightning or whatever. You know, and then I remember I buckled, absolutely, you know, smashed. I think I had the wherewithal to think, right, I need, you know, get me out of here sort of thing. Rang, or maybe someone else called my mum. I remember being in a phone box anyway and just smashing my head into everything. And then my mum comes and picks me up. And then my mate sat in the front of the car. Oh, no, I'm sat in the front of the car and my mate's in the back. And she's going, how much has he had? And I'm turning around going, throwing up everywhere. Never do it again. But of course, you know, the week after you're back at it.
Yeah, that's what I was like, I'm never doing it again. I'm so sorry, you know, the next day. But yeah, I was out 2 days later, basically. But yeah, I just didn't have a lot of respect for me nana. Like, you don't when you're a teenager, do you?
Was it just your nana or nana and granddad or just?
Me nana, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I went through this, like, even everything that my mum was, I still idolised my mum because I didn't see her much, and she was dead fun, you know, and she always showered me with love when I did see her, and I just wanted to be with her all the time. So I had this little like bugbear with me nana, and me auntie as well. She used to always, if we ever fought, you know, we used to like physical fight, used to, and she would always say like, go back where you came from and stuff like that. You don't belong in this house and stuff like that. So I used to always have this little, like, I didn't really want to be there. I wanted to be with my mum.
Which is nature in it, really. Yeah, it's kind of normal.
And then when I just turned 14. I was out with my mum one night. She used to go in the shop for our drink. You know what I mean? All my mates loved me ma because she would go in the shop for her. But there was one night I stayed at my mum's, and my nana was like, she was getting a bit sick of me going home late and stuff and misbehaving, but my mum was just finding it funny, to be fair. And she said, look, if you aren't back by midnight tonight, don't bother coming back. That's it. Your bags are packed. You're out. And my mum, she kind of lost track of time and that. And she was like, oh shit, look at the time. And she went, oh, I tell you what, just stay with me. She went, that's it. You're staying with me now. And I was like, all right.
And this is at 14.
Yeah. But the thing is, my mum didn't have a house. So she was living in a hostel. It was a men's hostel, but she moved in there with a fella. And he left. He was nuts. Most of our boyfriends were nutters, absolute nutters.
Yeah.
And he left, so she got stuck in this place. It was called St. Oswald's. I think it's shut down now. It was absolute shithole. It was disgusting. It was just filled with smackheads.
Yeah.
So anyway, she was living there, and I would just go and I would just sleep in the bed with her. Do you know what I mean? And she was like, "Tell you what, stay with me, and we'll go to the council in the morning. We'll tell them what's happened and stuff, and they'll have to rehouse. They won't let you stay here." So yeah, we went to my nana's the next morning, and true to our word, she was stood there with all my bags and all my clothes in bin bags. It was horrible. It was one of the hardest moments of my life, to be fair, seeing how ruined my nana was. You know, the pain on her face when she was like, you need to do this. And I felt that was when I realised how badly I'd treated her. Do you know what I mean? Like someone who had done nothing but love us and brought us up. So I ended up going living with my mum, and we went, say this was a weekend, I was there a couple of nights, and then we went to the council and stuff, but the council were like, look, she's still the legal guardian, there's a process, it's going to be at least 6 weeks. So yeah,
your nana was still the legal guardian.
So we had to get like a letter off me nana saying that she didn't want to have us anymore and stuff. She couldn't cope with my behaviour and things. And yeah, we went down that route, but we were stuck in that St. Osmond's for weeks. I think it was about 3 months in total. It was disgusting, and I was having to like.
And this is a men's hostel.
It was minging. There was no, like, we would have to take laundry to laundrettes and stuff like that. I remember at one point because the school ended up knowing what was going on, do you know what I mean? And they seen me just go downhill, and they were dead worried. And the teacher actually pulled us in once, and she started crying, and she was like, look, I know what you're going through and stuff. And she was like, if you need to do washing, you know, you can bring it here and I'll do your washing for you and that. Like, they were dead supportive.
That's lovely, isn't it?
It is lovely. Like, there were some lovely people at that school. But it was just a hard time, because also I'm trying to like live up to a reputation with my pals, do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
So I had a little bit of shame hanging over us. I was like, you know, I'm homeless, I'm living in this bloody scruffy shithole with my mum, who was a smackhead, do you know what I mean? And so it was a pretty, but luckily everyone was quite, you know, all right with us. But I think that always made me drink more. I just drank over it, do you know what I mean? That's why I was so lost and troubled. And we ended up eventually we just went knocking on like bed and breakfasts and stuff down in Whitley Bay, because they were a bit cleaner and that down there. And my mum was just like knocking on the doors and crying, you know, holding my hand. I mean, I was a teenager, but my mum treated us like a child a lot of the time. When I hit those years, she wanted to take us everywhere. Like, I would get off the metro at school and my mum would be there. It was really suffocating. Those years in my life, I could look back, were the worst.
Do you think she was doing that to calm us, like use you as I don't use maybe the wrong word, but as like a crutch for her own kind of pain and her own...
Yeah, 100%.
You know.
And she didn't like being alone.
Yeah.
She wanted to see where I was, so she knew I was safe and things like that. But like I say, in those times, she never hid now from us. She took drugs in front of us. She'd done everything, you know, when really she should have been protecting us. She thought she was, but she wasn't. She was exposing us to a lot of stuff. I mean, luckily now, my mum does still suffer mental health problems, but my mum copes by forgetting everything. She can't remember a lot. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So I don't ever go there. I don't ever bring this type of stuff up. And she knows like everything that went on in like relationship, because it got worse as we got older as well. But
as in your and your mother's relationship
with my mum, yeah. There was just a lot of letdowns over the years. Like I say, now she's in a very good place, and she's been a mother. It was more the past 5 years than she ever has, which is good. And I'm really lucky to have that, because, like I say, she could have killed herself the first time, or the third time, or fifth time, however many times she tried to do it. So I've still got her here, but yeah, she did put us through hell in those teenage years.
Yeah. Like I say, the burden of your friends seeing, you know, and you're the one whose mum's like in that situation, you know.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I remember I was about 7 months after the operation as well. I ended up, like, I was getting into fights and stuff like that, you know, with me back. I could have been paralysed. Anything gone wrong with me back, I could have been paralysed. I've got bolts going through my spine. Getting into scraps and that. Yeah, and then I was getting arrested for fighting and things like that. And then I started stealing as well. So obviously we didn't have any money. My mum was on benefits and stuff, sick benefits for being mentally ill, but she took a lot of that. She spent a lot of that on drugs, to be fair, and just little bits of food. And so I'd seen my mum stealing in the past and stuff, and I didn't want to have no money. And I remember the first time I went into Phoenix, and I was stealing like baby clothes, what were like designer baby clothes that were like £70 for a little baby girl. I would roll it up, put it in my pocket, and there was people like in the area that would buy stuff. Funnily enough, the girl who used to buy it, her fella worked offshore, and I remember thinking like, God, they must be loaded. Yeah, loads of money because he used to buy all the designer baby stuff off of us, do you know, like for half price. So I used to buy all my mates' drink. Do you know, like I would be loaded. Yeah, so,
there's that side of it as well, and it's like I've been in this situation before. You do things to get by when you're from those environments and all the rest of it, whether you necessarily need to or not. Like, because I'd say, you know, at the time I'd say I'm doing this, whatever I'm doing now, because I need to. Did I need to? Probably not. You know, if I'd applied myself in other ways, I wouldn't have had to do some of the things I did. But, you know, a lot of people from our environment, once you get the rewards from that kind of stuff,
it gets addictive as well.
Well, it does, but like, it just goes through your fingers because you're insecure within yourself. Yeah, it's like, right, well, I've got a bit of change now, so I'm gonna go have that.
Yeah, if you're not used to having money, you don't know how to deal with it.
You know, exactly.
And the good thing is as well, people people from areas like in lower class people, like what I was like, they'll share everything they've got. They share their last. And there's a big difference. You know, people are rich because they tend to keep things to themselves. They know how to manage money and stuff. But people at the bottom, they connect with their money. They'll go and buy drink and drugs because that is the way that they get together and connect, and it stops them from being lonely. And it's a community environment that way. Do you know what I mean? And people will share the last of what's in their cupboards with you. It's just the way it is. So it's kind of like a bittersweet thing, because it's a lovely thing to think that people's morality is a lot better like that, even though what they're doing is stealing from big companies that make a fortune. Do you know what I mean? But you're actually sharing it with people that have got nothing. Yeah,
I think it's interesting as well, though, because obviously as you get older and you now start working offshore, and the money's can be quite good and all the rest of it. I've done things, started businesses, and you're speaking and mixing with different people who own businesses, and you know, all the stuff that happens in the rough areas and like the place where you brought up. All these rich people, they're all doing it too, but it's like, you know, they've all got the baggage and the problems, and they're all you know, in and out of each other's beds with each other's wives and husbands and all the rest of it, like. And it's just
a higher class move.
Yeah, it's just somehow they see themselves as being like, you know, it's the same thing. You know, we're all human at the end of the day, and we all have, you know, flaws and all the rest of it. It's just that, you know, people from our environment, like council estates and places like that, you're constantly under scrutiny and judged for it. And it's hard to kind of elevate yourself beyond it.
Yeah, and it's hard for people to get out of it if it's all they're used to as well. You know, and I see myself as when I started scaffolding, that was my way out of that life. That gave me a look at what a total different life was, working with people who had families and worked, and they'd done things a bit differently. You know, they went on holidays and stuff like that. Like I never went on holiday growing up, and some of my mates didn't either. Do you know what I mean? But it introduced me to a new life. I think that's why I ended up sticking scaffolding, to be honest. Because
did you work beforehand?
I did, yeah. God, I must have had about 10 jobs, but I could never hold it down because I was always getting sacked for going in late. I've been pissed. Turning up mortal. But
I think I almost said it on one of the previous episodes about, you know, first job I had was it was in a perfume warehouse, and I didn't really go into I said I didn't last very long. I was for stealing. Like, because I'd go into the perfume warehouse, it was like, there was all these different perfumes. It was like, they weren't like the designer ones, but they were like the copies of the designer ones, like John like Paul Gaultier that was out at the time, and Cool Waters and all the rest of it. And they were like the snide versions of those, like the, don't want to get called by Aldi, but like the Aldi versions of it, like, you know, but they had like similar names, but ridiculous. I know. So a box would come off a wagon, and then I'd throw it in the bushes outside, and then I'd pick it up, and then I'd be selling it to all my mates. I think I got sacked in the end for timekeeping, as in I wasn't in on time, which if anybody knows me, you know, it's not hard to make that jump, why I would get sacked for poor timekeeping, but I think it was more, they knew
what was going on, but they couldn't prove it.
Yeah, they couldn't prove it. But anyway, life goes on.
But I mean, with the shoplifting, I did get caught. I got caught 3 times actually, and I went to court and I got a criminal record for it, and I stopped. It did luckily put the shits up. The thing is, I've always had a good sense of awareness, and I've always knew that I was in control of my own destiny. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, look, you need to stop, because you're going to end up in jail. Do you know? And I kind of knew that. And my mum did a little stint in jail as well. And I didn't ever want to be like her, even though I was on a similar path with a drink and stuff like that. I always knew that I wanted better for myself.
So the first couple of jobs were just like...
I done a stint at McDonald's for 2 weeks.
I worked in a burger van though, to be fair.
Sandwich factory. I worked in a pub, a drink shop, a call centre. I loved the call centre job actually. But
I did a bit of that.
I got sacked up for missing it, for not going in, for being drunk. Well, drunk off the night before and stuff, I just, bad self-control, always had bad self-control with drink. But I
think I threw a can of Coke at the manager's head. When I was in a call centre. We're selling mobile phone contracts, you know, like when people's contracts. I think like I did like maybe 5 or 6 jobs, you know, before scaffolding. It was all in that year since leaving school. And then didn't want to go to college, had to get a job. And then there was these 3, 4, 5 jobs that I did. Similar sort of story to yours there. And like, I did enjoy the call centre. There was a great atmosphere, probably for the wrong reasons, you know, the drink and the drugs and all the rest of it.
It was good money as well.
But the money was all right. The commission was all right. And I think it teaches you to be persuasive, which,
Yeah.
you know, is a
People
great
skills.
life skill. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. People skills and, you know, being persuasive. If you can sell something, you should do all right in life, because at the end of the day, most of life is convincing people to come along with your harebrained schemes. And I've still done all right because I've got you on this podcast. So
exactly. You're not doing too bad. Your interview skills are sound.
I must be doing something okay. So then those jobs didn't really...
they didn't last. I did actually go to college as well. I nearly forgot about that. I went to do my A-levels because I did manage to get my GCSEs. I got a few B's and C's. So yeah, I done all right in the end. And I studied law, because part of us wanted to be a solicitor. I don't know where that come from. It was just a little phase that I went through. I was like, I'm going to be a solicitor. I think that was after my little court stint with shoplifting and all that. And English language and literature and performing arts, because what I wanted to do was work in the film industry. I wanted to write films and be an actress and things like that. That was something I always wanted to do. But I dropped out because of things at home. My mum, so basically we lived around these little temporary accommodations for 3 years, moving from bed and breakfast to women's refuge to temporary houses and that. I think we moved about 12 times in the space of 3 years. And when we eventually got a house, I'd been living there for about 6 months or something. We were just sort of getting settled in, and then I got the job at the call centre. And I remember my mum, she opened my letters one day, so she was charging us board money at this point. She was like, right, you need somewhere... I pay some money, and it was something like 20 quid a week. And she realised how much I was making on the side of everything. Like, she didn't know how much money I was on. And she was like, she opened one of my pay slips and she was like, if I knew you were on that much, I would have took more money off you and stuff. So we ended up having like a big argument, and she kicked us out. So I ended up sofa surfing and stuff. And yeah, I dropped out of college just to try and get more hours in at work, because I was like, look, I need money. I need to get my own flat here because I can't live with my mum. But then I ended up getting sacked from that job as well. So I dropped out of college.
I think that happens though,
got sacked,
you're still finding what you're good at, what resonates with you, and all the rest of it. Where does scaffolding come into it?
Yeah, so this was I tried a few different jobs, like I say, over the years, and then when I was 19, my friend Shauna, she had been referred to this place called Work and Links. So if you're on the job centre for so long, they refer you to Work and Links, and this is where like employers come in and they do pitches for certain job roles, and then anyone in that place can apply for the job if they like the sound of the role, you know, rather than just reading it.
Yeah.
And she had an interview, an open interview, like a pitch thing for this scaffold company, for the office, for the administrator's job. And she was like, oh, why don't you come with us? I was meeting Alistair and she went, why don't you just come with us? Anyone can come in. So when I went, I didn't intentionally go for the job. I was quite happy on the dole at the time, to be honest. I was just, getting paid, drinking my money away and just having a good time, really. And I went in with her, and this guy was talking about scaffolding, and he was just saying how it like can be worldwide, and he was saying it's like, oh, it's brilliant in the summer and things like that. And he was really like going on about the scaffolding job, and I was like, I put my hand up and I says, can women, like, do lasses do that as well? Can women do it? And everyone started laughing. And he was like, well, there isn't any. He went, I don't suppose it would like be a problem though. And he says, do you want to do it like? And I was like, oh, I says, well, it sounds better than sitting on my arse all day, to be honest. And everyone was just laughing and giggling, thinking it wasn't serious. And I wasn't serious at the time, to be honest. I was just having a bit of a crack on.
Yeah, I've seen that a few times, because I used to do stuff in the job centres, when I was working at Simeon, you'd go in and we were talking about maybe doing some pre-employment courses. And same thing, I was probably that guy making scaffolding sound way better than it actually is. But my experience of it has been good. I mean, I have done the travelling side of things, the Australia, the German, the Malta and places like that. So like it's genuine, but I am also really aware that is not the story for most people. Do you know what I mean? It's for most people, it isn't that. Yeah. It's like when I see these fucking VR headsets and NASC, not slagging NASC off or something or anything. You say, oh, come and do a scaffolding apprenticeship, and it's these kids with VR headsets on. I'm like,
I've not even seen them.
Have a look at it. You're like, that is not going to happen to that. When they get into scaffolding. If they spend any time with a VR headset on, like, God knows what they're doing, but that ain't my experience of what scaffolding's been like. But anyway, I probably was one of those people that making it sound better than it was. But I mean, at the same time,
I mean, it can be. It's up to you how you make your...
Exactly. And he said something to you, and it set a light bulb off.
It did, yeah.
And I think there's been girls in the job centres when I've been delivering like those sorts of stuff like that, they've gone, And, you know, and an element of it is that, you know, can girls do it? And like, it is just a bit of banter at the time and all the rest of it. But, you know, one of them might. And if you do, they might end up with a similar story to yours. And I think like...
And it might change their life.
Yeah, as I said, you know, in the intro and all the rest of it, it's absolutely true. I think as we were texting back and forth, weren't we, before you come on the show, I'd have referred to you as the OG. But you are, do you know what I mean? The UK's first female advanced scaffolder, UK's first female offshore scaffolder. And there's no reason why one of these other young girls who's listening to one of these talks, or maybe even listening to this podcast, can go, you know what? It's a bit of me that I can have a go at this.
100%. I do think there needs to be a little bit more. I mean, you see, when I done it, I did have a trial. It was a little trial period, and that was on the company's back. You know, to be fair, when I look back, we probably shouldn't have been doing it because we didn't have a scissors card, we didn't have like a site labourer card or nothing to be on site. I'm saying we because I did do a trial with 2 other girls.
Right. So
you know, my friend who I went to the interview with. What happened was I got a call after this interview where she got a call and they went, you know, your friend, she said that we should be in serious because we'd like to get her in for a trial. So like I spoke to them on the phone. I was like, yeah, I'm up for it. Like I'll try any. I was at that point. I was like, I'll try anything. Do you know what I mean? I could do with a bit of money. And she was like, well, if you're doing that, I fancy doing it as well. And we got invited along. So there were the company at the time was doing the stage for the Oasis concert at the Stadium of Light.
Oh,
so they were building all the stage there, which of course...
What company is this?
Easy Scaffold.
Right.
It no longer exists.
Ceased to exist.
Yeah, but it no longer exists. It's not up and running anymore. It folded a good few years ago. But probably because I was there. No. But it was building the stage for that. And she was like, Howie, we'll go along. And then this is there's another girl going to come along, and it was Carly, who was like, she's a good friend of mine now. And she was a paint and decorator, so I think she already had a feel for trades and stuff. And
Carly, is she from Leeds ways?
No, from Newcastle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Carly Doolan. She's got the lady tradie. She's a paint and decorator.
All right.
Yeah, she's brilliant. But so they basically said if you just come in and do a trial, they'll get paid for doing the work. It was like £80 a day, which was massive. I was getting £80 a month, I think, back then.
What year was this?
2009.
2009.
I was 19, yeah. Right. Yeah, minimum wage then was about $4.50 or something like that. And I was on the dole, and I kept getting sanctioned on my dole money because I wasn't going to the sign up. So I was getting like hardship payments, to call them, which was like £20-something a week. I know it was mad, and I had a flat as well. But anyway, yeah, I really struggled. So obviously at this point I'm struggling like mad. And we went to this place, and the guy was there, Spike, and he showed me around. So we went to the stadium, and like we all got the metro together. They said, there's another girl, Carly, coming. Will you meet up with her? Sean, I knew her from school. So, and the three we just got on like a house on fire. We had a right good crack, and we got the metro up, and we went to the stadium, and we walked in, and it was just filled, you know, with workers and that. And they were like, there was like this little food corner, and they were like, go and help yourself to the food and stuff. You know, you can have whatever you want. And it was just brilliant. We had nothing to do basically, but what he'd done was, so he took me down like into the stadium, and he had a bit of scaffold there, and he was like, this was Spike.
Was it tube and fitted or?
It was Aliastar.
Aliastar.
Have you heard of Aliastar?
Is it like
it's a system.
Aluminium quick stage?
Yeah.
Yeah. I used that in Australia.
I forgot it there. It's a Norwegian. It's a Norwegian
really?
brand. Yeah. And they do use a bit of it offshore now as well.
Right.
I've come across it like years later. I've seen it. And I was like, no way. I never thought I'd see that again, because they were the only company that had that system. I don't think anyone else in the country did have it. I think because the owner used to work in Norway, and I think he used it there. And he brought it back over here and started a company with it. So it was like lighter weight stuff, and he just showed us how it went together. So we built like a tiny little tower, no boards or nothing on, and we just obviously we had a hammer, it was all clicked together,
yeah.
And it was light as a feather, and I was like, this is so easy, do you know what I mean? I couldn't believe how easy it was, and we were buzzing, and we'd done like 2 days there, and then we got a phone call, and they were like, look, Shauna got the office job, and they said, but you two can have a start for if you want, but you'll have to go and do this online test, obviously your scissors card, or was it the CSCS card to get on site and stuff. So I done that, but then they turned around and said, look, it's going to be an apprenticeship that you do. We can't pay you full time as trainees. You'd have to go to college and stuff, and you'll only be getting like £120 a week, I think it was. But then at the end of that, you're going to be on like £10 an hour. So that was like more than, double the minimum wage. And I was like, yeah, I'm going I'm going to do it.
And you're getting something out of it at the end.
Yeah.
You're getting a qualification.
Yeah.
So you ended up going to college.
Yeah. So
what was the apprenticeship like then? Was it like the 1A, 1B, that kind of thing?
No, not. It was just, so your first year, you got your part 1. So at the end of year 1, you got your part 1. And at the end of year 2, you got your part 2. And it was at Newcastle College, which they don't do it there anymore. And so
like a full-time course?
Yeah, no, you worked full-time and then you went to college, like 2 weeks a term.
Yeah,
so 2 weeks at a time, I would go in and would do like a week, say, in the classroom doing with NVQ with theory and that, and then a week building the towers and like all the different things on the course.
Yeah. So I think that's like
is that similar then?
Yeah. So I don't know whether it was first start when I did my part. When did I do part 1? Maybe 2004, I think, part 1A or 2003 or something. But it was like a foundation course, 2 weeks, and then a part 1A, and then a part 1B, and then 2A, 2B, and then a week of assessments. And I don't know, it sounds like it was maybe something similar to that.
Maybe, but with that, like if you were part 1 and trainee, you were allowed to get on the scaffold, but you had to be with a part 2. You had to be with someone qualified, and then once you were part 2, you were allowed to just, work with a labourer.
Yeah.
That was the only real difference in between the two, and obviously the pay difference.
When did you start sort of, obviously did your college get your qualification? When did you start working kind of, was you on big sites, like construction sites?
No, we done a lot of like council work. He had the local council contract, so it was mainly doing towers and stuff. There was a few new build sites, but it was mainly towers for like windows and roof repairs and stuff like that. Just door to door going around in the pickup or the wagon. And that was all Allieston. Then I was going to college and using.
Even on the council estates was Allieston.
Yeah. So
it's weird.
I really struggled with the tube and fitting.
Yeah,
I was going in and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with all this, because I just didn't know what I was doing.
Courses,
because I was going to working with system, and then I was going to college and working with tube and fitting, and I found it really hard to keep up, because I was like, well, everyone else there was working with tube and fitting. I was the only one working with system, so it was a bit difficult. Like,
it seems to be the closer you get to Adrian's wall, it's like that's when you start seeing more and more system scaffolding emerging. It's weird. Like I always say when I'm delivering training courses, people say about system, and it's like it's overseas and all the rest of it. I said, not really. Like tube and fitting.
Yeah,
really,
Scotland's got a lot on it.
Yeah, tube and fitting really is England and Wales, and then like Scotland. I'm not saying there's no tube and fitting in Scotland. There's loads, but a lot of it's there's a lot more systems, a lot more cut block, a lot more quick stage. Same with Northern Ireland, a lot more cut block, quick stage, that kind of stuff.
There's so many now. We had one for a bit as well called Perry Up. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, good system.
But that was brilliant. That out of all the ones I've worked with, that was probably the best, most adaptable, I would say. I think, like I'm selling that there all now. I haven't spoke to anyone previous, right?
Yeah, well, Perry, you know what I mean.
No, that was good.
Yeah.
Out of them all. But yeah, for 5 years I used the system, so I got my qualifications, part 1 and part 2, but I still wasn't using tube and fit. I was just going using systems. You know what I mean? So I was always a bit scared to leave that company. I was a bit like, oh God, if I go somewhere else, I'm going to be back on tube and fit. You know what I mean? I'm qualified, but I haven't got the experience, and I'm going to need help and guidance. Do you know what I mean? So I was a little bit scared to leave there, to be honest.
Yes, I think that's not. I don't even think that's just true of. Obviously, with yourself, you've worked with very little tube and fitting, other than in college, and then you kind of qualified, quote unquote, and you having to go out and put tube and fit scaffolds. We can imagine that would be difficult, but I think from what I see, you know what I mean, for lads that we've had working for the scaffolding business that I had, and people who've come in on scaffolding courses, I think the apprenticeship route, at the end of it, you're a qualified scaffolder. You get your part 2, you're a qualified scaffolder. I see a lot of them that the training wheels still need to be on, even with lads, people who are still working with tube and fitting, like right the way through the courses. Do you know what I mean? So they're working with a tube and fitting company. They're out with a gang putting tube and fitting scaffolds up all day, every day. And even them, you're talking 18 months.
Yeah. And
they've got this blue card at the end of it that says,
Whereas some of the stuff on there, you don't do a lot anyway. Do you know, like you might not do a chimney saddle for 2-3 years and then expect to remember exactly how to do it 3 years down the line because you're qualified.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There is a lot of aspects, I think, in the way that you're qualified that could probably do with a bit of a shake up.
Yeah, do with a bit of a tweak. Yeah, I like the idea of like
it's good that you've got like your guidance, you know, like your TG20 and stuff like that. Always go back to. I suppose that'll always help. And,
yeah, like, you know, as long as you're building it as per TG20 or as per the design or whatever, then, you know, I'm not saying you can't go far wrong, but like it's getting a lot better now where there are things out there to reference. Whereas years ago, it was like, you know, well, certainly when I qualified, I got my part 2 in 2006. TG20 had only been released. It was like a draft version released in 2005. So it was TG 2005. And then it didn't really resemble what TG20 looks like now until 2008. And even then, you know, it was, you basically learned on the course and that was you. If you remembered it, great. If you didn't, you know, there was a lot of different standards. It was only when TG 2013 came along where they were like compliance sheets and, you know, you had a physical, you know, document to reference as to what this thing should look like once it's built and like guidance books and all the rest of it. It's only really then that it started to change and now it's improving all the time, which is really, really good. And it hopefully is bringing the standard on. But I think from the training aspect, I think maybe like the IRATA sort of system where it's hours and like you're having to demonstrate what you've been doing throughout the sort of thing. I mean, I guess what that's the MVQ is supposed to do is like work-based evidence supposed to, but yeah, there are definitely like inconsistencies there. Yeah. That's another show for another day. Get myself in trouble. So when you qualified, you'd qualified, mostly system and all the rest of it. When did you start jumping into more sort of tube and fitting stuff? Because obviously this has led to you going offshore, hasn't it? Yeah, not until years later. So I ended up going off the tools for about 4.5 years. Because I was at Easy for 5 years. And then I left there to go to Interserve. So I got offered a trainee QS role. I went in the office at Easy because the office girl went on maternity. And they wanted somebody who knew what handover was and things like that, you know, and they were just like, look, there's an opportunity for you to come in and cover this, you know, this maternity if you want to kind of start working your way up. And I was like, all right, this is as long as I'm getting paid the same though, because I'm not taking a pay cut to come and sit in the office. And they were like, yeah. So they kept us on the same rate and stuff like that. And yeah, that company was having money issues and you could see it was going to go down. You know, people weren't getting paid and stuff. And some of the staff members were paying out their own pocket to pay people's wages. It was getting that bad. Wow. Yeah. I'll not go too much into it because it's obviously private to them, but yeah, I knew it was on its way out. And then someone approached us on LinkedIn. Actually, I don't think LinkedIn had been like up and running long, but someone at Interserve approached us and said, look, we've got a trainee QS position coming up. And we think it'd be good for the role and stuff like that. Would you like to come in for an interview? And so the woman in that office, she was a female QS as well. Oh, okay. So I went in and had like an interview with her and just to hit it off straight away. And she was like, look, even though you haven't got the computer, you know, training, you've got the scaffolding side. And we think you'll bring something like new to the business and stuff like that. So yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So, and yeah, obviously I got the job and it was great because it was a big pay increase. I got a company car, things like that. And it just, you know, it was just a lot more professional. So it was a huge stepping stone really. But, yeah, so Dawn was my manager for about 9 months and, everything was going really well. You know, I was nailing the spreadsheets and things. I was just doing spreadsheets and doing like monthly financial reports and things like that, but I wasn't getting out on site and that yet. So I was getting a little bit bored of it. But then we got taken over by a different branch and they were completely different, the managers. And the director in particular, he just did not like me. He was like, you shouldn't be in this role. Do you know what I mean? He was like, he sent a report once saying that I didn't have the right maths and English skills. Right. Maths and English skills out of everything. Like, he just basically didn't think I had the professional sort of like demeanour to be in the role, which to be fair, he probably had a point, but the point was I was a trainee and I was getting up to that, you know what I mean? And yeah, things went a bit west there as well. I didn't get on with him. He scrutinised us a hell of a lot. And I started getting really, really stressed and stuff. So I started seeing an option out of that. But I was there for 2.5 years. You know, it was like a trainee QS. It's a trainee QS. It got to the point where they were coming up from Preston, Manchester branch, and the guy who was in charge of me was only coming up twice a week, so I was there most of the time. It's probably a long. It's probably I work for Interserve, and Preston was our branch when I worked for it, so this would have probably been about 2000.
Yeah, it's called something else now, anyway,
Enigma.
isn't it?
Yeah, Enigma.
Yeah. But so I was just in, at the desk all day, just basically filling out reports. It wasn't for me, and I knew it wasn't, but I wanted to stick it, you know what I mean? And I was finding out loads of little issues, financial issues on spreadsheets and stuff. And as soon as I opened my mouth about it, and they started like pushing me out a little bit, I found a lot of things that shouldn't have been on these reports and stuff like that. That's all I'll say about it. But anyway, yeah. And then I was just kind of on my own a lot of the time. And then they decided to get someone in who was a qualified QS. But I ended up training him for 3 months, and he was like, this guy, he was falling asleep at the desk and everything. Like, there was just something, he just didn't want to be there. He just wasn't like right.
From a scaffolding background, was he? Or?
No, but a QS background. So he didn't have a clue. So I'm having to tell him, what scaffolding is, what a handover is, and how they do the reports and stuff. And then, but that was good for me because it went in my favour. But the manager of the branch really liked us. It was just the director didn't. And the manager was like, look, we're not going to take this QS on. We're just going to give you the role, and you're going to get the money you deserve and stuff like that. You'll be classed as the QS because you've seen, you've held it together and that. You showed what you can do. And I was like, fantastic, made up. You know what I mean? I was like, I think I might stay after all, starting to see what's really going on. But then, not long after that, like I say, I started finding the thingies on the report. And then, it went a bit west and I left. I ended up leaving, but there's a legal reason I'm not allowed to say.
I'm going to find out off camera.
Yeah, I'll tell you what that was there. But it's not drastic, but yeah.
So you leave.
I left and then I ended up going to a massive company in the Northeast now, actually. It was big at the time, but it's even bigger now. As a contracts manager. That was my original role that I went in for.
And did you find contracts management was more suited to your skill set?
No. Not at all.
I guess what I mean by that is, manager and management is a lot of it is communication and people skills, and you clearly have, great communication skills.
Yeah. The thing is, in management, there's a lot of confrontation, and there's a lot of like thinking on the spot and things like that. And I just didn't have the training for that type of thing. I didn't have the experience with it at all. But I kind of jumped in, assuming that I was going to be a bit more supported, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because they knew my background, knew that I didn't have a management background, but looking at my CV and things like that, it looked like because I'd been training to be QS for a couple of years, that I probably had a bit more professional experience dealing with people, but I'd been sat at that desk for 2.5 years.
Yeah. Just office banter and not
pretty
really.
much, not really meeting the site managers and stuff like I wanted to.
Yeah, and the site team and having to portray that kind of professional image to the customer.
But I kind of,
it was customer facing. I was a QS again, but in the trainee QS anyway, in the office, you're not really customer facing. Whereas I guess in contracts management,
if things had been running a bit better, then I might have been able to go out to the sites at least once a month to get to see them and stuff. But I couldn't. I was absolutely snowed under. So when the opportunity came up, obviously I took it, and I think both of us were made up, the company and me, with the role and stuff. But it was obviously a trial. It was like, look, we'll see how it goes, but this is what you're going to be. So at the time I was kind of in charge of labour, so I was just allocating labour to the jobs. And I remember my first shift was a Monday, and I'd done all the sheets, who's going to what site, this and that, and of course Monday morning comes and there was about 12 guys off, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. And I was in the deep end straight away. Don't get us wrong, I was supported. The people there were nice, they were lovely, but it really done damage to me, because I kind of started thinking, this is too much, I can't do this. But my life at the time, I couldn't really leave. I just couldn't. It would be like giving up. I was like, no, I'm determined to get better at this. But so I was like showing up at work, but I was like, I got really bad anxiety to the point where like it was all I could think about when I was home. Yeah.
That should never be the case, should it? You know what I mean?
No. It's constantly, but like to the point where I was worried what everyone was thinking about us as well. I was thinking like, I'm an idiot. The self-critic in me was horrendous. And I was like, I'm an idiot. I can't do my job. I'm going and everyone thinks I'm an idiot. So like every time I was driving up to the office, my heart was going, and I was like, I'm walking in and you think everyone's thinking and talking about you, and they probably weren't, but
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you're in that mindset, you start making mistakes. I was driving through red lights, left, right and centre. The amount of times I nearly crashed. I drove through the barriers at the Tyne Tunnel because I was just in this zone all the time, thinking about what people are thinking of us and what I'm having to deal with when I get back. Do you know, like reading people's faces, thinking that.
It's not a nice scenario to be in, is it?
It was horrible.
I think it was the last guest I was speaking to, a guy called Graham. Similar sort of thing, we were talking about, management and, he did his coaching badges as a football coach. He was like quite used to, management from that. And then he'd been in sort of supervising, and I've been in supervising roles and all the rest of it. And it's a difficult.
Yeah, but to me as well, but the way I coped with that was drink, just not feeling like you can't think straight, can you? It's brain fog. So that was just amplifying the anxiety 100%.
And then waking up with like the fear and all the rest of it. And then you're back to work on the Monday morning.
Yeah. But like, because I was making all sorts of mistakes, well, I don't know if it was mistakes, but I just maybe wasn't organising myself properly and things like that. And it just went a bit downhill over the space of a year. I ended up saying, look, well, I agreed to go down as a supervisor instead because I was doing that work mainly. Mm-hmm. To be fair, there was a lot to deal with. There were so many sites to cope with someone who's never done that before. I don't think it was all me and my alcohol abuse and stuff like that. I think the work was generally far too much for somebody who's brand new starting out in that role. So I couldn't win really. But I went down to supervisor and I was just sort of driving around sites, checking the sites and having a relationship with the site managers, and I was really enjoying that side of it. I was, going around and speaking to the lads and stuff like that, but then it was going back to the office when the anxiety would kick in and stuff, and then, I would get back from a site and they'd say like, oh, look, someone's been and checked on that site, and, there'd maybe be about 20 plots of scaffold up, and they'll go, oh, there was a toe board missing on the back end of this is your fault, like, really? Yeah, you've missed that. That's your role. You're not doing your job properly, But I wasn't just one, don't get us wrong, there was loads of little things building up and it felt almost like everything and everyone was against us, do you know what I mean? And I just... New build's hard
place to manage. Like from an inspector's point of view and audits and stuff like that, you'd expect these, factories, petrochemical sites, mining, infrastructure, all that. You'd expect those to be the places where... But the fact is that those places are super, safe. Mm-hmm. It tends to be you build a scaffold for somebody and that's all it's being used for, and it comes down and all the rest of it. On a new build site, that scaffold's got to work for the brickies, it's got to work for the roofers, it's got to work for the window fitters, and then some of those people are scaffolding spanners, and then some of them modify the scaffold and make little platforms, and then what you sign off at 12 o'clock is a different scaffold at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, 100%.
And I feel I genuinely say to people, especially on the inspection course, it's the hardest environment to
I've always said if I was to ever go back into management or anything like that, I would stay away from new build sites. Or if I ever got my own business, like I've had a few mates who've started their own businesses up and I'm like, listen, just stay away from new build sites, because I've seen the financial side of it as well. When I was at Interserve, they're a nightmare to keep up on financially as well. Notoriously
bad for not paying the additional hire if things go over, and they do tend to go over.
QS is there to try and pay as little as they can, and they will, scrutinise every little thing. So I'd seen that side of it as well. But I mean, the thing is, God knows what I looked like in that company because I was a mess. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So although I'm seeing like that they've come down hard on us and that, it was the best thing they could have done, because I think they could see that I was spiraling out of not control. I was keeping it together, but I was like a bomb waiting to go off.
Yeah.
And I did eventually, and the bomb just went off, and I just went, I don't know what happened. Like it was almost like a breakdown that I had, but it was almost like, but this is when I started going into my spirituality and my holistic things as well, because it was like a spiritual awakening at the same time. But they do say when you have a spiritual awakening, it's catapulted by some form of trauma or some form of stress where you can't take any more. You've got no option but to see that root, and everything comes to light that way.
Yeah, it kind of plays out in nature as well, doesn't it? Yeah. It's like things have to kind of...
Yeah. You can either do your research and find things out, or you're forced into something. And I was kind of forced in, because I just one day I just went, I ain't going to live like this anymore. And I don't have to. And I kind of realised, and it was just mad. I was just like, I know I don't have to live this life. But I think part of the anxiety was fear of losing everything. And, going back to the days when I had no money and I was, going from party to party just for some drink. Yeah. And to have something to eat at people's houses because I had an out.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go back to that. So, but then it just all dawned on us, and I was like, no, I've still got my scaffold card, and obviously petrified to use tube and fitting because I hadn't really used it before. I don't know, something. So I just went, right, that's it. I'm going back on the tools. And I said to them, look, I'm not doing this. I'll work for you, but I want to go back on the tools now. And I'm like, oh, you can't do that when the lads will rip you to bits, you know, it's like throwing you to the wolves.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Because you've been a manager now, like the CEO is one of us. And I was like, it'll be fine. They haven't really been an issue with us. I think it'll be okay. And I was like, I have to take this risk because I'm going to just implode. I need to find out. Do you know what I mean?
It's strange because a lot of people take the risk the other way, don't they?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, I took that risk and it didn't work out.
I guess so, yeah.
And I just had to really swallow my pride and say, this isn't working out for me. I can't do this job. I'm going to have to try. I'm going to have to try going back on the tools.
All
and that
those
was
stops
so
along
scary.
the way, though. It's like that's where self-awareness comes from.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's probably if there's one. I don't know whether you call it a skill or whatever, but if there was one thing I could pass down to my children, it'd definitely be like, you know, self-awareness. If something isn't jamming with you or you're not, then you have to listen to yourself.
Yeah. And we tend to put it off for other people, don't we? And because, you know, if you've got a family involved and stuff like that, you've got responsibilities, it's harder to leave a situation that you don't want to be in.
I've just done it. Do you know what I mean? Like with leaving the scaffolding business. Do you know what I mean? And everybody I spoke to around the time was like, what are you doing? Like, because if you look at the company, it's doing great. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, to say we'd started a company in the middle of a pandemic. Do you know what I mean? Probably one of the worst economic crises that there's been since 2008. Yeah. The price of materials is through the roof and everything. It's probably the worst. I think Dave Randall said to me, he's one of the directors that seen me before I left. He went, he said, I think you got a set of balls on you. He said, but I also think you might be picking the worst time in the last 100 years to start a business. And, you know, it's hard to argue, isn't it? Yeah. But it seemed to go really well. The work was coming in, picking up contracts. I think one of the second or third job we got was like Amazon, like a big super shed in Gateshead, actually. Where is it? What's it called? The name will come to me another time, but it's in Gateshead anyway. The something park or other. But yeah, massive big. Like we had no fucking right to be on something as big as soon, but we got it. We did it. The job grew legs. We ended up getting a lot more work off the back of it. So everything was going really well. But inside, I was just like, it's not me. Do you know what I mean? And I could tell from the second or third week of being in this thing, like back on the tools, back thinking like, this isn't me, this. I really did love my job when I was working at Simeon. I was working with, you know, apprentices. I was working with customers who actually value your opinion. You're talking to them and they're listening to what you've got to say. Yeah. And like, they're really taking it on board, like, oh, cheers for that. And then like, you're saying it to people within your own business, like your lads and stuff, and they're like, fuck off, what do you know? Like, people used to pay me to tell them this stuff. Do you know what I mean? I'm just it's only advice. You know what I mean? I'm on chat. Well, I realised pretty quickly that I needed to be back out, and it ended up taking 2 years. So we finally said, look, you take that business in that direction. I'm going to go and start something else and do my own thing. But you do need that self-awareness, don't you, to be able to go, you know, this isn't for me. You know, I need to listen to myself. It sounds like that's what happened with the, you know, going back on the tools. Yeah, definitely. How did offshore sort of become a thing? Well, was going offshore before or after the advanced card? Before. So I ended up, I stayed at that company for a while, and I was on a new build site, just with me and a guy. And honestly, it was like being trained up from scratch again, to be honest. If I hadn't scaffolded for 4.5 years and going back on tube and fitting, but he helped us. He was a lovely, lovely bloke, Davey. And I just wanted to spread my wings a bit. And then I was seeing a scaff at the time, and he was working offshore. And I've got to find out. I'd always thought about going offshore, but never really had the balls. And also, like, I didn't like the idea of putting my head under the water and stuff. But the survival. Yeah. But having the balls to go back on the tools, that like awoken something in me where I was like, I can do anything, you know, like anything that scares us will pay off if I just do it. Yeah. So yeah, that's how in the end, I was like, look, all I'm scared of is that little water thing, but it's going to open up like a whole new world for us. So yeah, I think leaning into your fears. Yeah. I had about a year and a bit, because I think about a year and a half, 2 years back on the tools. I went down London for a bit as well, worked down there. How'd you find it? Yeah, great. I really liked it. I love London.
Yeah, I was there working with my ex at the time. So I wasn't quite on my own. Do you know what I mean? It was all right. And he was showing us the ropes and stuff. And then we worked on Canary Wharf, which is like the Crossrail job. It was all underground. And that was quite similar to offshore. You had to get a permit to work. There was a lot of sitting around. You get like one or two.
So it's not as full on as like
not as full on,
council work and fronts and backs of houses and that kind of environment.
Yeah, it was good. It was just mainly small works and stuff, you know. I've been quite lucky avoiding 21s, if I'm honest. Because, like,
I don't know.
we worked on one big job, this Pall Mall job, and that was massive. And, you know, we were, like, rope and wheeling, like, the 20s and that up. But I haven't got a great deal of experience. I've never really had to work with them because I was all system the first time. Yeah, down London, on the new build site, you know, I had quite a few of them there, but they were a little bit thinner gauge and I was fine with them. But not having to top out with them because it was just 120 was your things, you know what I mean? So
yeah, it says about 6.
People always go up with, what you like with the 20s. I'm like, I don't really know, do you know what I mean? I can walk about with them, sort of stood up, but I've never had to top out with them. To be fair, I know I'd struggle. I probably couldn't, to be fair. But I'd done all right avoiding that. It was all small works in Canary Wharf. And then, my ex was like, look at the jobs, it's a bit like this offshore, you know, like if you go offshore, you'll be all right. So I saved up a little bit and went in for my survival, and it was the best thing I ever did. Like, it really is. They don't have any 20s offshore at all. 16s max. And they're starting to even get like thinner gauge 16s out there now as well.
Yeah.
So,
That's
the big thing. If I'm totally honest, I know you haven't asked the question yet, but that's a big thing, stopping it being a woman, you know, an inviting industry for women.
Yeah.
Because even most of the blokes that have worked offshore for years have said, God, I couldn't go back and work with 21s now. Do you know what I mean? Even men. And I watch them struggle.
It's funny.
Like, and I'm like, well, if you're struggling with that,
it's the way you use them, you know. It really is. Because, you know, with street work, and I've been lucky enough to have a good mix of industrial, street, commercial, everything. You know what I mean? I've had a pretty good mixed bag. Really, the commercial construction is like really the only place where is it really a need to. Do you know what I mean? Like we're scaffolding this building. This is like an old industry. It's a mill. Do you know what I mean? So you're probably talking about 100 foot, 120 foot to the top of it. Then 21's sound. But like a lot of the time, you know, for small jobs, fronts and back of houses, if you're topping out for your handrail, you've ballsed up really. You know, like if you're on that last lift of scaffolding, you're topping out to put your handrail in, and you've ballsed up really. You should have enough. You should have planned your staggers out.
You can plan it out exactly.
So I've always found it's easy to, you know, what was the point in pissing around basing out with the 21 when you could just base out with like you know, as long as it's enough to get your handrail and 10 foots and bits and then usually if you're topping out, then you're not having to top out with the 21 if it's a small job, you know. And you can save your 21s for like where you're getting the most bang for your buck if you're putting them in as ledges and handrails.
Yeah.
But like if anyone's not topping out and like,
we get away without using them offshore. Like we get away with it. You know, some of the jobs are bigger jobs. Most of them are little towers and stuff, or you know, you're putting droppers in instead. But you get away without them. And I'm just like, well, why do they even exist?
It's a way. I've always said this. I'm a bit weird with it.
Yeah. Whether they'll get phased out or not over time, I don't know.
Are they 100% needed? Probably not. Do you know what I mean? Like if you look at system, there are no 21 foot system standards. The largest standard you're going to get with the system scaffolding is 4 meters. Do you know what I mean?
They are efficient, I suppose. There's efficiency there.
Yeah, there is. But like, well, system scaffolding are no 21s. The largest standard you're going to get is a 4 meter standard. Then most of the bay sizes, system, the largest bays you're going to get are like 3 meter bays. So they're not needed there. Tube fitting is just another type of scaffolding. It's this, you know what I mean? So there's no, but at the same time, I think the day I go into a yard and watch 2 apprentices having a challenge who can stand up a 16. Yeah. I'll be like, nah, fuck this. I'm out. I
mean, even the 16s can feel heavy if you've not had a 21 for a while. Yeah. Like, you know, the 16s are quite heavy as well.
When I started back, when we started the scaffolding company.
Chest tight, but I've not really had to, like, but I probably would struggle with that.
Yeah. Oh, starting the scaffolding company back off, like, the first few, you'll know this yourself after 4 years away from it and then going back on the tour. Oh, that's fucking horrendous. I was like, what was it? That probably didn't play into the reason why I wanted to get out. I think one thing that did play into the reason why I wanted to get back out of it, from the physical aspect of it, because I've mentioned there was a lot of things on the kind of missing old jobs and all the rest of it, but from the physical aspects of it, I found myself becoming a bit more of a risk taker. And do you know what I mean? To say that I'm a health and safety advisor or whatever, I didn't like that side of it. You know, and like you say, probably the drinking culture. I'd finish work and it's a hot day and it'd be straight in the van. The lads would get beers and then be straight to the pub and all the rest of it. And I hadn't done that for years. And I was like, from a personal perspective, I thought I'm not really liking
the lifestyle
that's attached to it.
Yeah, I like that about offshore though, because everything is pretty got to do everything proper out there. Everywhere someone's watching you, or most of the time, do you know what I mean? It is very I would say the work is a lot safer out there.
Yeah, and everything's under the microscope, innit? And it's the planning as well. You get that much more time.
You get time to do a job. Do you know what I mean? You'll get time to do like a tower. It's like, look, we just want it done safe. We don't want it done. Whereas I found back on the beach, we call it the beach now, on land, it was all production.
Yeah.
We want it done as safe as possible, but we need it done yesterday.
Do it yesterday, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, there's no balance, and then you will get the macho guys who will just, they'll just do all the little the routes around the safe stuff. Yeah, as you know, just to get it done, and they're normally the favourites because they get the work done and they just don't visit their sites. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's I think the offshore culture is better. I think for me anyway.
Someone will listen to this and I'll say, "Oh, he's talking shit" or whatever. But I just think you can be quick and you can be neat or safe or whatever, whichever word you want. I don't think you can be both. Yeah. Not to the degree of.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
I've worked at loads of people where I've worked at loads of firms where they'll have a gang that go flying in and then the job's up and it's up in next to no time, but you're spending a week snagging it and going back and putting the, tow boards in and extra trannies and, all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I don't think safe and quick.
Good. I don't either.
Maybe with system. Well, that's another topic for another day, I guess. So, once you've now gone offshore, you get your advance and all the rest of it. You did that was it
Simeon in London, yeah.
In London?
I went down to London for it,
okay. Get your advance and all the rest of it. And obviously, with that, there's going to be a little bit of fanfare, I guess. It was, part of the reason why I picked up on the story is because you're the first female advanced scaffolder. Bit of kind of media attention at the time, and rightly so, I think, because, I mean, you've trailblazer. Yeah. Some media attention, perhaps not to your liking. I'd guess. Would you want to?
Yeah, people keep using my photos on things on LinkedIn and that. So other companies, most of them are offshore companies. They'll put on like a post or apply for this job now, and it'll be a picture of me and like the other female scaffs, because we done an article for the Sun years ago, but it's happened a few times now. Plus the company that I work for, they done their own shooting, obviously their own article when I first started, and rightly so, and they took their own pictures and stuff, and they've been using them as well.
So it's companies that you don't even work for.
No.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they're trying to say, like what is the point in that? Like, what is the point? Do you know, it's, we're going to use a female photo to attract people. Like, they're trying to say that we've got women offshore as well, but they obviously haven't, otherwise they'd have their own photos. Yeah. So it's just,
I totally agree with you.
Baffles me. Like,
I do. I think, opening up, not having barriers, I think, is the most important thing. Not having barriers to entry to the industry. And as long as we don't have barriers, then just let the people who want to come, and let the people who don't want to come, stay away from it. And he said, let people just be themselves. But if you want to promote equality and diversity within your business, employ some people from diverse backgrounds. You know what I mean?
And I think there's more subtle ways to go around it as well. And what I've noticed, especially on LinkedIn and stuff, like, well, over the years, even when asking that, there's been a push to get more women in the industry, and I just don't like that. I'm like, well, why are you forcing? I understand it. They want it to be more of a balanced workplace and stuff, but have they really thought about what that would look like? Because to me, like, so years ago when I was in management, NASC had asked me to go and be part of these committees and stuff, but I was really, like, I was a nervous wreck at the time, and they'd asked us to go and do a talk and be part of these things. And I kind of pulled away from it, and I said, look, why don't you have a committee of female scaffolders? I'm not the only one. There's other females, and I can only speak for myself and my experience, but speak to everyone else and get to know what it's really like for a woman on the tools, because there is things that make us different. We aren't exactly the same. And like, in my experience, and I'm only speaking for me, by the way, I don't know about
absolutely.
the other women, but to me, physically, I'm a bit slower. And, you know, if I went to put a job up the same as a guy, I'll probably finish 10 minutes after him. I am just physically a little bit slower. It hasn't been a problem, luckily, and my work ethic's good. You know, I keep up with everything, but I'm definitely a little bit slower paced. And I think that's just with a female mind. You know, females' brains are a little bit slower when it comes to technical things, and that's not anything against women, but they just seem to have this glamorous idea of having all these women in the industry and making it a better place, but they don't. To me, they're not asking the right people the right questions. Like, well, what do you think's different? Like, if half the workforce was women, then would they get the same amount of production? Yes, they would. Have they even thought about that?
That's not, do you know what I mean? I'll be honest with you, I've never even took that into consideration. Well,
because they just look and go, well, Vicky's smashing it. She's out there. She's advanced. She's obviously keeping up.
That's such a funny. But they don't. You know, when people say such and such is smashing it.
Yeah,
I've had it since I've done this podcast. Yeah, and I've had a few people. Oh, you're smashing it, aren't you? Go on, lad, you're smashing it. I'm like, no. Yeah. Like, well, I mean, it's not. I'm doing okay, but
I am, but I'm not perfect, and I'm not up there with the top scaffs. I'm not. You know yourself. You get a squad of 3 scaffs. They're all different. You know what I mean? One's always more clued up than the other. One's always more physically stronger, and squads just work together. But you're not on your own. You're in a squad of 3, and everyone seems to have their little perks, what they're good at, and you know, everyone works together well. And you get some guys who haven't got a clue, and you get some who just don't want to do anything. They're lazy. Do you know what I mean? So
that's one thing I can't abide. Laziness. Green and keen, fine, you know, but laziness. You know, when you get people who just like. My mate always tells this story about when he was working offshore, and he said he used to work with this old fella, and he goes, his motto was, "You've done enough by turning up, like you've done him a favour." No, it's not how it works. But yeah.
Sometimes the less people do, the less they want to do, and they just want money for now. Some people don't, they? And I've been told I'm too keen. Sometimes I'm like, God, do you know what I mean? You're too bloody keen. But like, I know I'm not super clued up, and I know I'm not super fast. Do you know what I mean? But I make up for that in many other ways. My work ethic's really good, and that's something that I pride on. You know, everyone I work with have always said, I like working with you. You're a good hand. You're good to work with.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to be the best. Do you know what I mean? But like, it just needs to be taken into consideration, the differences between men and women, and like,
I think as well, you know, a lot of workplaces aren't really that well set up for women in construction for a number of different reasons. Like,
also, you've got to have very thick skin and a certain mindset, and you've got to like certain type of banter. And I know if I say that, people might think, well, change the banter then to fit the. Do you know what I mean? But it's what gets you by. Yeah, it really is what gets you by. The industry is a certain way, and it has its little beauties in it that I don't think should change. I don't think we should storm in and say that needs to change, because do you know what? It won't work as well. It won't get. It is what it is, because it's a dirty, kind of hands-on, tough job at times. But it's also like the banter gets you through that. Yeah, it really does. And
and I suppose in a way it's like,
and if you're offended by absolutely everything, then it's not the job.
It's definitely not, is it?
Not with scarves anyway, because
it really isn't. Oh, it's brutal. Some of the stuff you could never, ever say.
I'm getting more. Be honest, I'm getting more sensitive as I'm getting older. At one point, I didn't used to care, but I don't know if it's with us doing all my spiritual stuff now.
I want to pick up on that, because it's probably a useful place to kind of go into it. I think I saw a post that you put out a few weeks ago, and I think it was about, you know, men and women in construction and all the rest of it. And you said that you were kind of embracing more of your like
more your feminine side
nowadays. And I guess that's part of the journey into like holistic therapies and all the rest of it. Has that helped you with that? I guess process.
It probably doesn't help us with scaffolding, because like I say, I'm probably a bit more sensitive now. I find myself that when I'm hearing the banter a little bit, like, don't get us wrong, I'm there and I'm enjoying it and stuff, but sometimes I feel a little bit like, oh, are they going to go away and feel bad about themselves? Do you know, because you know what scaffs are like, they rip into each other, and I'm a little bit more sensitive to that. And it's good as well, because I find myself having better conversations with people. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Whereas rather than just having crack, I'm finding that I'm getting to know some guys at a deeper level, and I'm figuring out sort of the connection what all men have got inside of them. Do you know what I mean? Because there's such a stereotype that men are just pigs. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they're just dirty, lazy arseholes. And you know, you get that type of vibe off people.
Yeah.
But my experience, they're not. And they're very like, they're motivated by love. They're there to provide for their family and to do things that they love in their life. And I think that's really good. And there's so much deeper, like, depth to the conversations that I'm having. They seem to be very open-minded. Do you know, like, a lot more than we give them credit for them.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
Half the planet.
Yeah. I'm just kind of wanting to break that stigma of this thing against men. I hate feminism. I hate it when, you know, this men and shit.
Yeah, and I think
because we need each other. Do you know what I mean? And it's helped me.
There's a difference, isn't there, between feminism and femininity. That is a really big difference.
Yeah.
And like, you can be feminine.
Yeah.
Without being a feminist.
Yeah.
And you can be not, everybody's, like you say, everybody's different.
But I've always been quite feminine. Do you know what I mean? I've not ever like dressed like a bloke or pretended I'm a bloke or anything like that, but I was definitely more in my masculine when I was heavy drinking and having that sort of lifestyle. And now I'm edging away from that. That's kind of what I mean by going into me feminine. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just softening up a little bit and not being as hard on myself with anything. Maybe he's not training as much and stuff like that. And I'm just taking things a bit easier, and I'm kind of wanting to help people mentally. I've got that nurturing side of us coming out now where I'm just wanting to help people. You know, I'm identifying when people have got issues at work and stuff, and I'm like, I just want to help you. And it's like, I've been helped throughout my career in type when I've felt like shit and I've not wanted to go to work, or if I'm struggling at work and stuff. But like, guys have always helped me when I need it. And I kind of want to give back, but I feel like the way I can give back is by helping them mentally. Right. Do you know what I mean?
So with these retreats, I mean, this is what we're talking about, the project is the Healgood Factor, right?
Yeah.
Is that going to be kind of just open to everybody, or are you a particular market of people you're going after? Not market, probably the wrong word. Particular demographic, should I say, of people that you're going after? Or?
No, just everyone in general. What's kind of coming up at the minute is that women feel safer around women and men feel safer like to express themselves around men. So you'll see there's a lot of women's only and men's only retreats going on at the moment. And in these retreats, it tends to be people opening up and talking about the way they feel. They don't have to, but it's also like introducing people to new methods that they can introduce into their lives to make them feel better, rather than drink and drugs and overeating and things like that. And it's just getting control, because we're all walking around with like nervous systems that are just going mad, do you know, because we're living such against with nature. Do you know what I mean? You think 100%. Like the stimulation that we see on a daily basis, we're not really meant to see in our natural form, are we? No. You know.
We have to deal with more information.
Yeah.
I'd say we have to deal with more information and more channels and types of information in one day.
And a lot of
our ancestors would have had to deal with in their entire lives, probably.
100%. A lot of psychological problems that you just wouldn't normally have to face. Normally, you know, like you see your ancestors, they would just be like thinking about the next meal, really, and like going out for getting food would be the only issue you'd have, or like survival, really. But we're walking around in survival mode constantly because we're getting triggered by loads of little things, and then the way people cope with that is suppression. Yeah. So they'll sit in front of a TV and they'll just, you know, they'll watch TV, they'll watch the news, and they'll just become hypnotized by all the
numbing the senses,
all the crap and all the fear to keep people at that dumb level.
Weapons of mass distraction.
I'm saying dumb as if I'm calling everyone dumb, but they, you know, you know what I mean by that, like like
so they call it the idiot box. You know what I mean? It's not for a reason. And the phones, you know, years ago, you might suppress and numb the kind of outside stresses and strains of life with the TV, but now it's like your phone, and you're taking it to bed with you. It's the first thing you touch when you wake up in the morning. It's
most of your life's on a screen, isn't it? And it's crazy. But that lifestyle of just being told that you've just got to go to work to live for the weekend, you know, and then live for 2 holidays a year, and it's like that's enforced upon you, you know, through the news, the media, through everything. That's classed as like a successful life. But a lot of people are struggling mentally in that because it doesn't feel right to them. Deep down, it doesn't feel right, and they're wanting more. And this is when you find people have breakdowns and they leave the partners, the wives and the kids, and they want to run off and do things, but it's because they've suppressed and they've probably drank over it. Or I'm not saying everyone else, like, but they use like methods to make you feel better that actually harm you, that do more harm than good. Yeah. And there's so many natural things, like breath work and sound therapy, meditation and stuff like that, that if you just learn to introduce to your life 10
It's the 5 senses, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I
Everything
can't
you're
remember-
already provided with is there to make you feel better, make you feel good, really.
I was watching some podcast the other day, and it was like this fellow was saying that, you know, when I do we all go through our times. I said I just try and ground myself in the 5 senses. So, you know, I'll think, you know, is there anything I can smell or look at something? What am I seeing? Can I taste anything? You know, all that kind of stuff, and just
be present in that moment.
Yeah,
we're either worried about the future or we're dwelling on the past. You know, like in the mind most of the time. Do you know what I mean? Or we're thinking about something that's happened in the past and don't want that to happen again. So you're constantly in protection mode for the future and stuff. And this is all going on subconsciously without you even realizing it. And because of your nervous system, you know, the signals from your brain to your body. And when I started meditating and doing breath work, it just completely changed my life, because every day I'm feeling centered. There's no more anxious thoughts. There's no more giving a fuck what anyone thinks. Do you know what I mean? Unless it's people that I care about. And obviously you want people to think you're a good person and stuff like that. And you want people to trust you. So there's an element of it, but you just become yourself. You're just totally yourself, and you're not worried about how you're portraying to anyone, because you're you. And that's just by using nature, which is your body, and going out into nature instead of going to a club to get drunk, to connect with people who are also mortal.
That's a proper Geordie word, that's all.
Mortal.
What was going to ask, do you have like a morning routine that you...
but it differs when I'm offshore, you see. So when I'm off, I go to the gym in the morning, so I'll get up and I'll have a coffee straight away. But before I look at my phone, I always put a bit of meditation music on. I used to use guided meditations, because a lot of people struggle. They really do struggle to just switch off, but that's, you know, the racing mind. But I'm at the point now where I just put a little bit of music on, or sometimes silence, and it just takes 10 minutes before looking at your phone or anything. Yeah. And just sitting in and just closing my eyes and just going in, and just, you know, any thoughts that come up, try and block it out. But if just come back to it after. I just think
that's
I'm
what
going
they're
to
saying. Observe the thought.
Just observe the mind, yeah. But what that instantly does in the morning is it puts you in control. It's telling your body that your body is the servant, the mind's the master. You're saying, right, I'm in control. You're just going to sit for 10 minutes and do nothing, because you don't necessarily have to be anywhere. We're trying to squeeze everything in with time. Time is such a big pressure, isn't it? And I think if I do that in the morning, and that's every morning, and then other mornings I might do like a little bit of breath work. I've got an app there for breath work, or I join like breath work groups. Do you do
the Wim Hof method?
No, I haven't actually tried that.
Well, me and the missus, right, did like cold plunges.
Yeah.
We did one for, I was saying off air, we did one for Valentine's Day. You know, most couples are like going out to a restaurant or something. Yeah. We're jumping into a fucking frozen lake.
That's brilliant.
But yeah, we did this thing, and like now we both do like 5 minutes cold submersion or cold shower every day. And I was saying, like, you're so dialed in once you've done this thing. Like I was saying, you could hear a piece of paper being folded from a mile away. It's like, boom, super present.
The stuff that's going on the inside is...
nothing matters. Because your body is in. I know we talk about survival mode, it maybe being a negative thing, but in that moment when you're in the cold shower, your body's going, I shouldn't be in here. Yeah. Get me out. But you just concentrate on your breath, chill out, and get yourself through it.
It's teaching your body that you're in control as well. So if you can go through that discomfort, at the end of it, it's like, it's an achievement. It's a big achievement. And that tells you that you're capable of anything. So it's not just, boosting your immune system inside and getting your nervous system back regulated. It's also telling you that you're in charge and you can do anything. And
I'm the boss. Yeah.
Total game changers. And that's kind of the route I want to go down, is just to share things that have helped me and other people. I know so many people, there's so many different modalities now that you can use to help yourself without having to do what society tells you to do, which is go and get drunk. You don't have to celebrate by go and getting a bottle of wine and drinking. There's other things you can do.
Yeah, I've got a weird, like, I obviously have a drink, and I had a few cans last night and all the rest of it. I still, I still have a drink, but I am starting to now think, as I get older, I notice the day after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not at my sharpest. I'm not at my best. I've thought about it a lot of times, going like 1 year no beer or something like that, and just seeing what the results of it be.
Yeah. Even just a month, most of the time you can feel the benefits. But
I do usually do dry January.
I'm only 4 months sober at the moment. I went right downhill last year. I had a where I was just drinking. But again, everyone's relationship with alcohol is different. And mine would be, it's not very often. So last year I wasn't drinking very often, but when I did, I drank too much. And then I'm like, how did I get to bed? You know, I would black out drunk. So I just lose control. If I have one glass of wine, that could lead to a bottle. It could lead to 3 bottles with me. And that's probably, you know, because my relationship with alcohol, at one point it made us feel it was like my friend. Do you know what I mean? It was what I turned to for everything, and it's been there with us since 13 years old. But I'd done a year sober, and I discovered all these new things and just started living. Going solo traveling was the best thing I ever did as well. Just having the courage to go somewhere, meet new people.
It does broaden your mind. It really does.
Totally getting to know people, you know, foreign people on a different like scale as well. If you're there with somebody, you probably won't give them the attention. You don't look around as much when you're there with your friend because you're just engrossed in whatever you're talking about and stuff. When you go somewhere on your own in the middle of nowhere and it's just like you and nature, or if you go to like a busy country where it's just all foreigners around you and you go to a cafe and you start talking to a foreigner, you get to know them. You get to, you're more present. You're totally more present. You just feel more alive.
Yeah.
And you realize, like, you know, what life's about. There's so much there to go and do. And if you're just kind of stuck, you know, in the same routine of anxiety and drinking over it and just doing the same thing every weekend and having a holiday a year where you go and get smashed every day on the holiday around the pool and you're not, you know, I mean, no offense to anyone that does live like that. Everyone's different, but to me.
And everyone's on their own journey, innit? But I think that's exactly what it is, a journey, and eventually you know.
Yeah. But to me, if someone lives that type of lifestyle and then turns around and has a breakdown, a mental breakdown, I'm like, well, I'm not surprised if that's how you've been living. It's so against your nature.
So,
you know what I mean?
Healgood Factor. Last, before we wrap up, because I think we're running out of battery life. And,
sorry.
It's been such an interesting chat as well.
Yeah.
Like, no, don't be sorry. This is going to be, I think when people sort of hear your story and everything, like, it'll inspire a lot of people. On both sides.
Sometimes I've got that much and I'm like, I don't want to get out.
But maybe to get into construction, or maybe to seek a life outside of construction and, you know, find a bit of peace and spirituality. So thanks for coming on. It's been really, really, really interesting. I don't think it'll be the last time. I think you'll definitely be back again to share more about the Healgood Factor. Do you want to share any social media handles so where people can get hold of you?
Just at the moment, I'm just on Instagram as the Healgood Factor. It's the only page on there. You should find it straight away.
Yeah.
And yeah, there'll be some retreats coming up this year. I've got my first female only, but I am looking to do a all men's retreat and then a mixed retreat later on in the year as well.
Well, keep us posted. Keep sharing. And once you've run a couple of them, definitely get you back onto where all you've been.
Okay.
Vicky, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.